Today we are talking with David Howard, writer of Blood World, Phoenix Throne. How you doing today, David?
Good, good. So glad to be here. Thank you for having me. I had a little scheduling conflict before my end, so thank you for working with me, and I'm glad to be here. So,
No problem. It's just part of the job now. It's scheduled around people. It's all good. So we have Blood World. It's a massive universe you're really building. Feels very Game of Thrones, Dune, a fantasy mixed together. Can you kind of give us a little bit of what Blood World is?
yeah, it's one of those things where I love to write or like to think about what if scenarios. So,
Mhm.
this is one of those situations where it was during the pandemic that this idea started coalescing in my head, and I was like, if I took the pandemic and everything that was going on, and I start writing history, what does humanity look like in my head? And I started sitting down and writing history. I wrote 600 pages of history going all the way out to the 26th century, and then decided to start writing a comic based on where humanity was at that point, and all sorts of stuff has happened to us since then. I
Mhm.
don't want to give it all away, but there have been cyber rebellions, there have been nuclear wars. The Earth has gone to hell in a handbasket, and everybody who could get off the planet got off the planet,
Yeah.
and we've settled into our solar system, and we haven't got faster than light travel yet. That's not part of our solar system, our universe, but we have conquered gravity. We could harness gravity, and that's part of weapons and a whole bunch of other stuff. And at its core, Blood World, the whole universe, is about two competing or three competing visions for the future of humanity:
Right.
mutation, unchecked mutation, genetic engineering, and transhumanism, which is the combination of humanity and technology, and whose vision is going to win. And there's three factions, and those factions are basically in conflict with each other. And so this first book, Phoenix Throne, is looking more closely at the Ganymede Monarchy, and they're the faction that is about combining humanity and technology. So
It is wild too how much they combine humanity and technology. What was some of your inspiration for them? Because it's so surprising every time it pops up. I don't want to give these spoilers, of course, as well, but every time it pops up in the book, you're like, "Whoa!" What was your inspiration for that?
Well, part of it was, I'm an old school geek and nerd like everybody else out there. So I love Star Trek. And so there's the
Yeah,
Borg.
yeah.
So the Borg are obviously part of that. Another one is one of my favorite video games, which is Mass Effect.
Hmm.
And at the end of Mass Effect, you get this option to be able to combine humanity with the Reaper technology. Sorry, spoiler, everyone. That game's been out for 15 years or something. But
Yeah.
so there's that going on. And then, and then part of it was just looking around at society. Cyberpunk is another one of my favorite games and
Hmm.
settings. But you're looking around at our society now, we're already kind of heading that direction. You got Neuralink from Elon Musk going on. There are already people who are doing very basic adding technology to their bodies, people who are putting RFID chips in their bodies and stuff like that. So
Yeah.
I think it's part of the future. And so our setting is 2587. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that there are going to be at least a group of people who are really devoted to that type of stuff. So
Yeah. And then with Phoenix Throne, there's this element of fantasy, right? With like I was mentioning before, this whole Game of Thrones thing. What about that is something that appealed to you as a story writer to kind of go back to this queens and dukes and stuff like that?
well, I mean, first off, I mean, I am a fan of Game of Thrones. I like
Mhm.
the TV series. I liked all of it, but it kind of went off the rails at the end. But
Of
I
course.
liked this TV series, and I like the books, reading them. I wish that George R. R. Martin would finish them, but that's probably a
Amen.
pipe dream. But I like this idea, and that these people. I'm going to give a little bit. It's not a spoiler. It's part of the
Okay.
history, and I've kind of got it out there now. But the Ganymede Monarchy, they are descendants of people who left Earth and committed a rebellion because they're religious, and religion had become outlawed on Earth for a variety of
Hmm.
reasons. And so they really have this more backward looking mindset as far as wanting to be traditional and follow these norms and everything. And they've got a number of different religions that went. So it wasn't just one religion like Christianity, it was Hinduism and Muslims
Yeah.
and Christianity, all Jewish, everything like that. So all these people got on these arcs and left, and eventually crash landed. Some of them got lost, and so when it came down to it, they all kind of naturally banded together around their religion. This formed almost like fiefdoms, but they had to be relying on each other for survival as well. And so it naturally kind of formed into a monarch, a feudal structure. And it's fun to play with that because, writing politics and stuff like that is easier or more fun when you can have dynastic politics and all of these things going on. Meanwhile, their main enemies are the Seoul Scientific Symposium, who are a science-based meritocracy over there. They're almost like they're autocratic in a lot of ways, and
Yeah.
so they're like the best way I could think of is saying this is the far future ultra progressive version
Hmm.
of a government in the future versus this very traditional structure. And so they're at odds in every way, and that's kind of how I wanted to set that up from a political standpoint. I mean, their religion over there in S3 is all about gene worship and ancestor worship is for genes and things. So very different. But so that's the high level. On a low
Yeah.
level, Game of Thrones and Lord of the Rings, having those feudal structures and backbiting and all of these different power structures, because there's also a church of technology and Blood World, gives a lot of ability to write drama within this science fiction setting. So it brings something different. And then finally, the last thing I'll say is you mentioned Dune before. Um, I love Dune. It's one of my influences for this book. And so, in Dune, you've got House Carino, you've got House Atreides, you've got all these various royal houses. And it allows you, you've got built-in conflict for the stories you're
Yeah.
writing, which is a cool thing to have, a tool to use when you're writing. So,
Yeah, it right away sets up loyalties and stuff like that. I mean, I read the first issue and immediately I'm like, oh, this guy I can get behind. And all of a sudden, I'm backing his banner in a way as a reader. And so when you're investing yourself immediately or taking ownership into one faction, it helps in setting up a story where you're like against the other faction at all costs and finding out who the bad guys are. It works really well. Looking at this story, it's in a far-flung future, um, 2587, but still we're already seeing themes that are relative to, and sci-fi is that way, right? It's that lens on our own current day politics and stuff. Is there any themes that you're wanting to pull from today's society into the future?
yeah, I mean, there were quite a few. I mean, one of them is obviously the age-old theme of power corrupts and absolute power corrupts absolutely. And there is
Hmm.
one character in there. Uh, you've read the first issue. At the end, there is a what's the word I'm looking for? I'm blanking. There's a surprise at the end. So
Yeah,
one
yeah.
character you will find, he is doing something. Yeah, I borrowed
Yeah.
that straight from George R. R. Martin. I'll just say
I
that.
figured you'd,
So
I was like, okay, I know what's going on with that.
yeah, you know, but the and but that's an age old theme. There
Mhm.
are people that are corrupt. There are people that are trying to undermine the system, and nothing is worse than betrayal from within. And then I'm not going to spoil anything more than that. So
Yeah.
you got that going on. The other thing you've got going on is that pulling forward is that you've got this idea of how do I say this? Isabel, who is the queen, is fighting not only to modernize and bring forward her realm and undo some of the progress against tradition.
Right.
She's fighting with that, but she's also trying to establish herself as being capable to lead this very aggressive and technological and warlike society as a female leader. And you see a little bit of that at the beginning, but there's more of that coming. And it's not, I'm not focusing, on the girl boss to all exclusions and everything, but kind of like Daenerys Targaryen, and I didn't mean this, but now that I'm looking at it, I'm realizing I kind of leaned on that a little bit. she's got to prove herself to be a
Yeah.
capable war leader because war is coming to the Ganymede monarchy. So that is going on. There are some other things that haven't been revealed yet in the story that we're really going to be touching on. One of them is going to be on reproductive politics. And I don't
Hmm.
mean like our reproductive politics, but reproductive politics in the future.
Yeah.
Because Isabel is a traditionalist
Hmm.
versus when it comes to having children. And she's had children naturally, which is considered taboo and uncouth in the
Oh,
Ganymede
wow.
monarchy, you know. So that is going on. But I think the biggest thing that I wanted to bring forward is this idea that for all of our advancements by the year 2587, we're still fighting about many of the same things, which is religion, power, food, um, resources. And these things are eternal. And it doesn't really matter how advanced we get in the future, we're still going to be fighting over a lot of the same things because at its core, even though these people are 500 years removed from us, they're still human beings. So,
Yeah. Isabel is such a fascinating character. I really feel like she's gonna steal the show, right? And the way that her and her cousin kind of bounce off each other, he seems almost as like the rebellious, fun character to follow along. But immediately after the conversation, I'm like siding with Isabel all of a sudden. You're saying
yeah,
that she's trying to move the needle forward. How will her family try to help or deny her that?
well, like I said, I wrote a bunch of the history. Her
Hmm.
father died under mysterious circumstances, and he was
Oh
a
boy.
reformer. And when I we just fulfilled our Kickstarter, and I sent out a brief timeline of the history, and you see that her father disappeared and died under mysterious circumstances. And I don't explain that, and eventually we will. But he was also a reformer, someone who was trying to do these things. And in Ganymede monarchy, there is this multi-layered feudal society. So not only do you have the great houses, those houses control various aspects of technology. So you've got agriculture is controlled over here, you've got technology, but you also have something called the Order of Ecclesiastes, which I love Warhammer 40K, so I kind of
Hmm.
built a lot of that off of that. And they control technology. And so the queen is the one who licenses the technology. So she's always in this back and forth with them and back and forth with the houses because technology, if whoever controls the technology in this society, controls the society. And
Hmm.
so the houses are always trying to get around her and build their own technology and things like that because they don't like being under her thumb. And so she is trying to allow more innovation and allow people in the society to use technology while at the same time trying to keep her power, which is a tightrope act. You know, she's
Yeah.
really walking that tightrope because if she gives away too much of her power, she's going to end up dead. Probably. At the same time, Isabel is also wants to go back to some more traditional things, like I said. So this idea of going back to their humanity. So Isabel has had 8 children
Hmm.
naturally, uh, which is unusual because children are grown in pods in the Ganymede monarchy,
Yeah.
and everyone looks at her as like a barbarian. And eventually, we will meet her children and what is going on with them. Um, but she's done a number of things that have gotten people whispering about her
Uh-oh.
in the Ganymede monarchy. And but I think you've seen from the first issue, she's not afraid to wield her power when it's needed.
Yeah.
And so she's got all of these worries going on. She's got a whole society and kingdom that she is constantly at odds with each other. They love to fight each other when they're not fighting other people. Meanwhile, one of her closest relatives, her cousin, Dominic, is a guy who is out there doing whatever the hell he wants when he wants, and just causing no ends of problems for her.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, and one of the things I love about this first issue and writing that character is that there's going to come a time. I think it's fair to say this that Dominic is going to have to choose a side, and it's like as the reader, where do you think Dominic will go? So it'll be curious to see how everybody feels about Dominic and everything because eventually this will all come to a head. So because
Right.
the conflict is still under the waters right now, it hasn't risen to the surface, but eventually it will. And when it does, um, Dominic Chabot, who is her cousin, who is probably one of the best warriors in this realm, is going to
Seems
be
like
a
it.
sought after asset. And
Yeah.
where is he going to go? So
Yeah. So first, I want to address the fact that yes, we are recording in the morning, as your rooster is letting us know that.
I'm so sorry.
No, no, no. I have roosters too, and so I'm well aware of the situation.
That is Chickpea the rooster, and he loves to be on every podcast. I swear he waits. So
You better add him as a character in the comic. This little robotic
yeah,
chicken running around.
that's a great idea, actually. So,
Yeah, Dominic is definitely like right. This we're hoping on a nice arc of becoming a this loyal soldier, but in that first issue, he's scandalous. He's all pretty much fighting for fun. It seems like, and we have to shout out too before we move on to your artist, the fact that mech suits abound. Right, these people are in enhanced suits because of their tying humanity to technology, and that just looks cool in the end. Yeah.
thank you, thank you. Yeah, I got to give a shout out to first of all, you know, when I wrote this, I had a vision in my head, and then my art director, who also did the cover, Jeff Bracey, came up with the concept art,
Hmm.
and then we passed that off to our artist, who is Towson, and he just knocked it out of the park. You know, coming up with what he saw as the visions of this, and um, I can't wait till. I mean, this is only the beginning. We've got a lot more planned to reveal as far as the mech suits and stuff, but we're planning on doing tech manuals and stuff like that.
Cool.
In the book, we have a blueprint for one of the suits, you know, and it's just the kind of stuff that I love. But yeah, Tosin and Jeff knocked it out of the park. Jeff did all of the initial concept art, and then Tosin took that and ran with it, and I think it looks absolutely beautiful. I really do. I love it. So
When working with these artists, first off, how did you meet them, and how do you instruct them? Do they follow your exact vision, or are they adding their own elements to comic books, and what kind of elements might those be?
well, Jeff and I have been friends for a long time.
Okay.
When I started working on this, originally I was going to write this as a novel, and then I was thinking about doing it as a comic. And I was running some ideas past people I knew, and a lot of people got really excited about it. And Jeff was one of those people who wanted to be involved. So we got involved with that. And Jeff is writing another book on Earth for us called Fellhand that he's going to be doing in the future.
Mhm.
So that was how Jeff got involved. Now Tosin is someone I met through someone else, and he was been an artist in comic books, and he's in Nigeria.
Mhm.
And I started talking to Tosin, and I asked him, I gave him some sample panels, and he drew some stuff, and I liked what he was doing. And Tosin it works really fast. He's very professional, you know, which was a big plus, you know, two big pluses.
Mhm.
And he did some great work, but he's one of those guys where there were a couple pages I got back, and I was like, you know, I would like to see this here or change that. And literally, it was not a negotiation or anything. It was like, okay, cool. And he would go back, and literally, the changes, the inks would be done and finished and back to me within 24 hours. You
That's
know,
incredible.
so yeah, yeah. So it's really amazing that way. As far as how I like to work with artists, it's funny. Every comic script I've written, I always put at the top, you know, note to artist. This is how I see the panel layouts and everything in my head. Please feel free to change or add in or whatever you want to do as you see fit, because this is a collaboration. I always put that up
Wonderful.
top
Yeah.
immediately. And so when I write, one of the best compliments I've ever gotten is from an artist I work with on another book I write called OPSEC, is that he's like, I feel like you're writing a short story for me. And that's kind of the way I write my script. So I love to sit there and like give very vivid details about things that may not even be on the page that are happening off page. And then I try and set up the panels like I would if I was writing a screenplay. So, you know, with shots and stuff like that. But I want to give very vivid sensory descriptions for the artists so that they could feel it and try and get into that themselves. So, for instance, in one of the panels, there's a guy who gets fried um, through a, virus being uploaded into a system during a
Yeah.
war, and in the script, I mean, I gave some very vivid descriptions of what was going on there, and then let Towson, and then had some suggestions on how I saw the panel, but let Towson bring that to life, and a lot of times I found that that works best. I always go back to this. And again, this is OPSEC, not Phoenix Throne, but one of the first panels for OPSEC ever drawn was this approach to this haunted castle. And I described it and everything, but then Mateo, my artist, puts in this little evil squirrel in the foreground, and it makes the whole panel. And I never wrote that, but
Yeah.
it's one of those things when you allow your artist to have some, collaboration and bring their own stuff in as well, it works out, because that's what really is going on here. It's the two of us working in tandem. So I like to give the artists a lot of freedom. So
That's great to see that collaboration. And in my experience with other comic book writers, it seems to be always when the comic book thrives for many issues is because of this collaboration process going forward. And shouting out to that first, like those panels we were talking about where the upload of virus and whatnot, that whole battle scene, the pacing on that is so rapid, so fast, where just one single panel will tell you an entire scene in it. And so yeah, that has to be a lot of collaboration right there because that could not have been easy to make that pacing make sense for the reader. That was
yeah,
very well done.
I'm so happy you say that though, because it's like it's one of those things where there was a lot of story to tell,
Mhm.
and I had all this, and I worked with Toast and all this, but it's like I really wanted to grab the reader right off the bat, be like, bam, hit you with the reader with this is at its essence what's going on in the Phoenix Throne, and then we kind of slow down in the middle, and then we hit you with a surprise at the end, a to make you wanting more for the second issue, and I think that it makes me really happy you said that because I think that the pacing works in this book, and definitely grabs you, almost like a period or episodic TV where this is
Yep.
our introductory issue. We want to get you invested right away, and then give you some story, and then really hit you with a God. My brain is what do they call it when it's like
There, cliffhanger, maybe.
cliffhanger. Thank you. My God,
There
it's too
you
early in the morning.
It is.
Yeah, so hit you with a cliffhanger that says, come on, Dave, I want issue 2 right now. So,
Yeah. It's a fantastic read, guys. It flies by. You're going through it very quickly. Like you said, that middle part where it's just the lore dump and stuff like that. You're just soaking in this world, and you're like, "Oh, I'm so ready for more world." And then, boom, that cliffhanger at the end. You're like, "What the hell?" So it's definitely worth checking out, guys. Um, where can people start getting their copies of Blood World Phoenix Throne?
so Phoenix Storm, we just finished up our Kickstarter right now. I'm in the process of delivering that, but we are going to be available on the anyoneworld.com for ASAP Imagination.
Hmm.
At the end of the month, our digital is going to be available. And once I have enough physical copies to send the publisher, we're going to have physical as well. This is available there. But we are going to be available for digital at anyoneworld.com at the end of the month. And this month, depending on when you're watching this, this is September of 2024. So,
We'll have links in the description, and hopefully everything's up in time. We'll make sure it is, and so you guys can follow up. We're also gonna have links to your social so they can follow you on your journey in creating issue 2 and everything else coming in for Blood World. This has been a fantastic chat. I really appreciate you hanging out with me today, David. Thank you very much.
oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. And it was great to talk to you about this. I love to talk Phoenix Throne and just talk comics in general. So thank you so much.
Anytime. All right, guys. Thank you so much for hanging out with us this week, and we'll see you next time. Bye.